Hey guys, it's Pete from Pete for Anxiety here, the mental health podcast, breaking the stigma that mental health is talked about. Welcome in today's episode. Before we get started today, we need to cover a few things really quick. Let's talk about the Pete for Anxiety Patreon first off. It's only $1, guys. $1. What does $1 get you? $1 gets you into the exclusive episodes I am recording currently. I'm actually focusing on certain different diagnoses of things to show you guys what it actually looks like as it manifests in a person. So why not for $1, judges? Yeah, they said $1. I just checked with them too. See, they said it was okay. It was $1 anyways. Let's also talk about the Oracle Talk Radio Networks app. In case you can't be here live listening to me, watching this video, supporting the show, you can listen to it on the radio app. Why not? It connects us live to our 365 radio. Just go to your app stores and download the Oracle Talk Radio Network. You'll see the big old Oracle Talk Radio Network app logo right on there. Download it and it'll connect you to me, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, to Pete for Anxiety when I'm live doing my thing right here, informing the world and raising mental health awareness. So where are you going to be? 10 a.m., of course. Come on, we just talked about this. Pay attention for once. Damn, do y'all know how to listen? And as always, guys, like, follow, and share the YouTube channel. If you guys like what you're seeing, leave some comments, man. We want to know. I want to know if you like what you're on. You want to be on the show? Let me know. Hit me up at PeteVersusAnxietyPod@gmail.com. And as always, guys, enjoy the show. And by the way, did I mention to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure because some of y'all are hard of hearing in the back, may have to yell loud or get a megaphone or something. But, anyways, let's get today's show started. Y'all have a great one. Enjoy.
Hello, welcome into this double header of Pete versus Anxiety, the mental health podcast, breaking the stigma. The mental health is really talked about enough. My guest today is a coach to caregivers and chronically ill patients. Please welcome in the one, the only Jen Fredericks. How are you doing today, Jen?
I'm doing pretty well. Like I mentioned, I trust in the unfolding of the day.
Jen and I are having a very interesting day so far, so we're going to see how it goes.
Yeah.
So, Jen, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about yourself, a little bit how you got everything going and things like that. Give them a little feedback so they know who Jen is.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm a bit of a tree hugger and a hippie.
That's all right. That's okay.
And also love neuroscience. Not trained in it other than the training that I've done toward my personal resilience practitioner training and proactive resilience or prosilience coach and life coaching. But I also learned a bunch about the brain from my journey as a caregiver for my daughter, who was diagnosed in 2015 at 7 years old with a low-grade brain tumor. And so I've learned more about the brain than I ever thought I would. And it actually inspired me to go into the work that I'm doing now of supporting family caregivers and chronic illness patients. Beyond that, which people say is a big deal, but it's just so normal for me. When I was 16, the age that my daughter is now, I had a kidney transplant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I've been navigating the chronic illness journey for 3 decades now. I had my second transplant in 2012. And so beyond the training that I've received, I have a lot of lived experience that I like to share with the people that I work with, because book knowledge is important.
Mm-hmm.
Life knowledge is priceless.
I agree.
So that's a little bit about me.
That's a lot to unpack there. Wow.
It is.
Not only you had, I think you said 4. How many kidneys has it now been? It's been like 4, right?
So I'm on my 4th kidney.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
We're all born with 2. They actually removed my, what I call native kidneys. So the kidneys I was born with.
Yeah.
And I had my first transplant at 16. My dad was my living donor.
Jeez.
And that lasted me a wonderful 18 years, got me through all of those, teenage and young adult life experiences and milestones. And then we adopted our daughter. And when she was 4, I needed to have a second transplant. Mine was just tired.
Yeah.
So my husband's twin brother gave me a kidney.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is. And people are like, well, why didn't your husband give you a kidney? What's wrong with him? And like, oh, no. They're fraternal twins. So he wasn't a match, but my brother-in-law was. So
I don't think people realize that when it comes to kidney transplants, that you have to match up certain things. That, it's like he wants to, but does he match? That's the problem. I don't think they realize there's more that goes into it than what they realize. But damn, Jen, that's a lot. That's a lot to unpack there, man. Well,
Thank
hats
you.
off to you first off, because that is amazing. Like what you're doing, I think it's very interesting, because when I read it, I went to your website, I was like, that's very interesting, because think about it, they need support too. Like, me and an earlier guest in the show had a conversation about that. What about the people on the other side of the conversation? Like, okay, it's great, we're talking about mental health, but the other people on the other side of that conversation, where's the support for them? Well, here comes Jen for you on and that subject right there. And it makes sense though. You think about it, because we always worry about the one side of the conversation, but we don't talk about the other side though. And it's rough for those people they go through. I read a memoir about breast cancer by Erica Newbert, and it was an interesting insight to what the people that are dealing with it have to deal with, and it's like, it's very insightful though for the other people on the other side of the conversation though. So now they know what their loved ones are dealing with and things like that.
Yeah.
Gives them a better retrospective of what they're dealing with, so they don't have to ask them so many questions. And and maybe that's something you should do too. You should write about that other side, and that'd be a great idea for a book. I know you had a book on your website too. What's your book about?
Yeah, well, so I'm part of 2 anthologies that came out this year. One is called
Hey.
When Stories, and I'm with 12 other co-authors, where we went and actually delivered our talk on a stage, and then it was transcribed into an anthology
Hey.
called When Stories, and we talk about our transformation when everything changed. So
Yeah.
that one's wonderful. It's behind me right there. And then the other one I was a part of is called Resilient AF, Stories of Resilience, Volume 2. And that one I share a little bit different insight into the caregiving part of my journey. I am actually outlining a book right now about,
Okay.
about caregiving and the challenges. I also really want to support chronic illness patients. And at the same time, it seems like caregivers are the ones that are stepping forward, asking for help more right now. And so that's why I'm focusing on that piece, but really have a wealth of knowledge on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, but it makes sense though. They're the ones that are having to deal with a lot of these things too. It's a
Yeah.
two-way road in that one. They've got to deal with a lot of emotional things. They're watching these people break down in front of them, and you gain relationships with them and things like that, and then you're just watching these poor people deteriorate in front of you. Like their mental states have got to be in a real bad state, and a lot of those guys, they need help just like a lot of us need help, And it's not to say nobody else is more important than others, but the fact that they're asking for help is good, because a lot of people won't even do that. Honestly, let's be honest. A lot of people that need mental health don't even know what they need help for, are too afraid to ask, because they're afraid that they think that something.
Yeah, that was me.
It's hard. It's hard.
Is.
It is. It's hard if you think about it. And, like you said, you understand. And the thing about this whole show is just like we're raising the conversation, about it in general. Like the numbers of suicides are just insane. Like I had a guest on like maybe 2 weeks ago. We were discussing about teen boys and seeing a rise of them. And the thing with the weird statistic was, Jen, is that men don't talk about it when they've attempted. They've actually succeeded more than women do, but women talk about it more. And it's not to say that one side is not more important than the other. It's just that statistic is just insane in general. Like that, we don't want those kind of numbers. And I feel like we're not talking about it enough, and things like that too. So it gets interesting, and then you meet people such as yourself that are working with the other people, chronic people doing all these people with chronic illness and things like that. It's just rough, man. To think of the mental stress they go through on a daily basis. Like you would know, especially since your daughter, but but your husband having to go through all that with you, different kidneys and things like that, and things. It's that poor guy, man. Hats off to him, because
I know. I say that all the time. Like, how lucky are my daughter and I that we have this man in our life, partner in our life, whoever you might have, that sticks by your side, and yet also is willing to share when he needs to. And he does it in his own way. When I first had a lot of anxiety after my daughter's diagnosis, I went for some more professional help.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe that wasn't what he needed, but just that he and I can talk about it and process. Like 2 weeks ago, I had influenza A, and my daughter currently is having some issues with fainting.
Oh, God.
She has a lot of comorbidities that go along with her brain tumor diagnosis that we manage.
Okay.
Like she has like 16 to 17 specialists at the Children's Hospital that we see. And so it was really hard because I couldn't go to the hospital when she needed to go for some extra help that week because I had the flu. And he took it all on his shoulders to go and be with her, stayed there day in, day out for 4 days before I was cleared to go
Yeah.
and help out. And afterwards, once she was discharged, like, we both looked at each other and we're like, we wish that no one had to go through any of this, but the fact that we have each other is like, we wouldn't want to go through it with anyone else.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm lucky in that respect. The same happened with, with my parents, with my illness. Like, illnesses like this and these traumas and these huge life changes can either bring people together or pull them apart.
Mhm.
And you know what? I'm not trying to label one as good and one as bad. It's just
Exactly.
the fact. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we're able to come together stronger when these things happen.
Exactly. And it's great when you have one person supporting the other.
Yeah.
And hats off to your husband. What's his name, by the way?
Zach.
Zach?
Yeah.
Zach, listen, man. 100% from me to you, sir. You are a standout guy. I don't think you hear it enough. You probably hear it more than enough. But, man, let me tell you what. You were doing the fight amongst fights, man, and I'm here with you 100%. We may not know each other, Zach, but let me tell you, brother, hats off to you because you were going through one hell of a storm over there, brother. For you to hold it together is just truly amazing, man. Just keep it going, though. But, it's great, though, that you're here sharing a lot of this stuff, too, because, man, like, that's a lot to deal with, her constant issues there, and you said you're interested in neuroscience. It's funny you say that, though. I have a friend of the show named Dr. Kristen. After this, I'll link you up with her. She's a neuro. That's what she specializes in, neurospicy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And there's another woman named Betsy Holmberg, and I had an interesting conversation that, if you, I don't know if you've seen the episode, I'll have to send it to you, but she and I had an interesting conversation. She goes deep into that kind of stuff too. She'd be an interesting one to reach out to ask her questions as well. And, things like that. I'll have to find her. I think she's on Instagram as well. I'll have to find her social stuff, and then I'll send them over to you and let her know I'm sending your way, or just mention my name and she'll know. Because she was on the show and she went deep into it. We were talking deep about, negative self-talk especially. And she was like really in tune with a lot of this stuff, but she can break it down for you that it makes sense and it's not too much for you to understand since you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Oh,
and
maybe
totally she might be able to help you out on that one too. 100% understand some more things that are going on.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll go in and talk to my daughter's neurosurgeon or neurologist, and I'll be like, yeah, I got a used book of Netter's is one of the big educational books. The Netter's neuroanatomy. They're like, you mean a book about neuroanatomy? I'm like, well, yeah,
why not?
It's super interesting to me. And one thing that's interesting to keep in mind is when we talk about mental wellness and mental health, it's like, I don't know how many people really understand that it's a lot of times part of our it's definitely a part of our biology.
Mm-hmm.
And it can come about, genetically or just what we're born with. But then also in my daughter's case, where her brain tumor is located, it's actually near a center of the brain that helps kind of control, manage those mood, it's mood regulation. Yeah. And so some of the things that we're trying to treat with her would be from the trauma, the medical trauma, and anxiety in the world. But then also there's this large biological effect from where her tumor is that's affecting how her mood is regulated, just like within the structure of her brain.
Yeah. That's got to be interesting day to day, though. Does she do have a lot of mood swings or anything like that since it's so close to that or anything? So
she doesn't have that, but just a lot of, uncertainty, those type.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I think we had lost Jen, guys. Hold on. We're having technical difficulties. I knew we were talking about this. Guys, I apologize. We are having technical difficulties at this moment, but guys, Jen said she would come back on her iPad if she had to. She was, having trouble. So I apologize, guys. We're figuring this out as we are live and doing this thing. But anyways, guys, like Jen was saying, though, it's interesting to hear, though, that if you don't think about it, this woman's got 4 different kidneys, man, and she's dealing with all that, and then she has her daughter with that chronic illness. Oh my God, dude! Like, I can't even begin to understand that. It's just nuts, man. It's just, to me, it's just crazy. I'm just like, wow, guys, and things like that. No, Jen will be right back, guys. I apologize. We already discussed this beforehand, just so y'all know we were prepared for this. She was going to jump back in on her iPad. So I'm just going to carry it for now. But guys, anyways, just I want to give you all a heads up though about some things that are coming up down the road. We're planning an unalive panel, because I'm live on TikTok, so that's why I say that now. We're looking at May 5th. Not sure the time yet. I will post exactly what it is. But if you want to be a part of this conversation, let me know. Reach out, peteversusanxiety@gmail.com or any of my social sites. Hit me up, things like that. We've got Jen back here now. All right, Jen, I've been carrying it. Don't worry. I let them know what happened. So you're good.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, but anyways, guys, like I said, May 5th, we're doing that on the live panel. If you all want to be a part of it, if you want to be a part of the future panels, let me know. And we are doing one for men's mental health as well. I'll keep you guys in tune on that. But anyways, Jen is back. Jen, welcome back.
Thank you.
Although we discussed this already ahead of time, so we were prepared.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a different angle. I was just wanting to give you some, different aspects.
There you go. She's going perspective on it. She's like, hey guys, here's a good side. This is my bad side. Yeah, it's interesting though. Like I said, though, I've met a lot of people on the show, man. I think yours goes up there with a lot of very interesting stories I've been told. There's a woman second week of the show. She literally had 16 rounds of chemotherapy. Doesn't have a large intestines. Doesn't have a small. She has a part of her small intestines, and it's just like I'm not even sure how this poor woman's even still going, but she's still going. And she was very nice, very great. And she even told us that she was on live for about 5 minutes on a table. And that was an interesting conversation too. I was like, great, here we go.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
And yes, I have a lot going on.
Yes, you do.
In my daughter's life. And I always share with my friends and my clients, like, please don't think that means what you are managing and navigating isn't a lot.
Exactly.
Because whatever someone is holding is a lot for them. And so that's why I think it's important to build strategies and tools to help whoever, wherever they are, whatever they're experiencing, to really get to enjoy life more.
No, I agree with you 100% there. I love it how you say that though, that you're not trying to say that other people aren't important. That's not what we're saying. When we tell you about things, it's just, we want you to know that we can relate to you in some way, because you never know what people are dealing with. And, anybody you see these days, you don't know what they're dealing with, and you never know how many things you guys align with, and it's great when you meet people that have an idea and a better understanding. Because right there, instantly, you've already made a connection because they're like, well, at least Jen understands what I'm dealing with and the struggles I'm handling. And I think it helps you relate to people more, too, and connect better because it's like, they can say, no, well, at least she understands what I'm talking about. And a lot of people will be like, look at you weird because it's like an inside conversation. But it just means that Jen knows what you're going through. She's experienced a lot of these things, gone through a lot of stuff herself, And the same to me, like I've gone through a lot too. And I find a lot of people that connect with me too are just like, well, I kind of deal with similar things. And then you understand at a deeper level. And it's not to say that, nobody else matters. It's just, you just get it on another level than other people would.
Yeah, totally. And just like most people in the world, I have waves of times when I'm experiencing more maybe mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Where I need a little more assistance. And so I go and find that, and I want to be that resource for people.
Yeah.
I'm going to be completely honest. I have been weaned off of anti-anxiety medication for, I would say, a couple of years because
that's good.
I needed it right after my daughter's diagnosis. It was too much.
Yeah.
I couldn't use any of the tools that therapists or counselors or my primary care doctor were asking me to do because it was just, everything was like a curtain or a fog. And so that medication helped lift that so that I was able to access the things I was learning to be self-aware and manage my mental wellness. And several years went by and I didn't need that extra help lifting the fog. And then after this last hospitalization, I was like, oh no, I could use a little more, right now with her fainting, she's not able to stand for more than a minute. So she's really ambulating with a wheelchair everywhere. And so we're taking the wheelchair with us everywhere. And it's working. And I'm so proud of her. She's at school right now, right? In a wheelchair in high school around all these teens. And she's not sure how they're going to react. But so I guess the reason I'm sharing that is just to say that I'm not considering that a loss or a failure, that like, oh, hey, look, I've been off of this medication. Because I don't want to label what's good or bad for anyone.
Yeah.
But just really give people permission to recognize what might be going on and where they might best find resources to help them so that they can live life now
Yeah.
the way that they want to.
No, I absolutely agree. I love it. I think it's great. It's like you said, it's just that's what worked for me. You know what I'm saying? Not everything is cookie cutter for everybody else. And I think that's what people need to realize is that, there's so many different things that will help other people. Like I have an anxiety journal for mine, and it was a gift from a friend of mine that I did a podcast with before I start this one. And she sent it to me and said, "Here, why don't you try this and see what you think?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not? Let's give it a shot." And it actually works real well. It starts on one page and it goes to the other, and it helps you refocus your thoughts in the end of it, and you kind of feel like, and sometimes it works, and sometimes I don't have it always available with me, but I don't tell people a lot of times when I'm dealing with stuff, because a lot of times they don't understand. Right. It's funny because my guest earlier, me and her were talking about how my boss had given me a conversation because I had a freak out at work and my anxiety just kicked through the roof, and I don't know what it was. Something just triggered me. I stepped away from the whole situation. I realized I was getting a little too much for people to handle, so I stepped outside for a minute. She comes talking to me. I love her to death, but I just know she doesn't get it. And, and I feel like she's a part of that group, that very selective group that just doesn't understand that stuff or doesn't think that stuff exists. And it's more power to her, great person. Other than that, can't say anything else bad about her. A fantastic woman. We've been through some stuff together that, my daughter, my older daughter, she was talking about killing herself. And then she was like, I'm like, listen, you need to understand how serious that statement is you're making right now, and I called her one day and I told her what was going on. Her first words to her were like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I don't think she realizes when she asked that question, how powerful that question really is. It's like, you may not completely understand what I'm dealing with, but you get enough to say that that's the first priority. It's like, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is everything good? And I don't think that question gets asked enough to people. And it's interesting to see, how people react to certain topics. Like I was telling you when you came back in, we were talking about doing a panel for, suicide and things like that, because it's not talked about. It's a rough conversation, yes, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. I think people need to understand the signs to look for. And, and we'll be having a Dr. Kristen, the one I mentioned, the neurospicy. She calls herself a neurospicy, but she is going to be there for that whole conversation, and I'm going to do as many panels as I can, so as much interest as it gets. So this will be the first one, but I'm sure I have a bunch of other people that want to be doing these with us. But it's just to get the conversation out there. I mean, I think it's going to be a trigger conversation. Obviously, we're going to put a trigger warning in the beginning, because that stuff is not easy to talk about. When you're talking about that and you're being on the edge of that, and me and myself experiencing it, being on the edge of it, like literally, me and another guest connected on that level too. So it's like we're both looking over this cliff, and you're looking at the proverbial cliff, and she was literally looking over the cliff. I was looking over the cliff in my mind, kind of thing, and it just gets interesting like that, and it's. I don't think a lot of this stuff isn't talked about enough. Honestly, let's be honest. I don't think a lot of it's talked about enough. I think that we have too many people telling you what to do versus actually asking your opinion on things.
I love that. And actually, before I started doing this work, I was in corporate marketing for 16 years. And one thing that towards the end of that career really got to me was how, you'd see the same person in the hallway maybe 5 times. And every time you see them, you're like, hey, hi, how are you? And you're always like, oh, fine. Well, I used to work for then after I was in corporate marketing, I worked for a coaching company, and I wrote a blog about it once. So like, I'm done with pleasantries. If I ask you how you are, it's because I'm picking up on something and I want to know.
It's funny you say that, Jen, though. It's because I ask people, hey, how's your mental health? And the reason why it's exactly that statement right there is because you could say, hey, how are you? And they could say, okay, all day. But when you pick up on something, that's usually my next question. It's like, that's usually why I start asking people like, hey, how's your mental health? And they'll look at you and they'll think about it for a minute, because they can't just say, okay, right away to that. They're like, why are you asking me this question? And then you lead into, well, I kind of have a feeling something's wrong, and I'm a big empath. So I pick up on people's energies and stuff like that. Yeah. So like I can read people's body language a lot of times and see that something's wrong, like I'll notice something on the other end. I'm always watching people too. It's weird though. I'm always watching what they're doing and what they are. And anybody that works close with me where I'm at, I keep an eye on these different things to see like, hey, listen, so I know what's going on. I'll notice when the normal behaviors and things change. And I'm always constantly watching them to see, because I can ask them, hey, listen, you good? Are you okay? You seem like something's up, and I deal with it.
I really don't like that about me. Sometimes even my daughter and husband are like, oh my gosh, can you like turn that off? And I'm like, actually, no, I can't. No. And I really didn't. I also include in my coaching some intuitive coaching, because I do get hits when I'm working with someone, powerful questions that maybe they're down a different path. And I always read the room, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Before I share that, because I want to make sure that people are in an okay space if I ask that question.
Yeah.
Whatever is coming up. But yeah, when I say how are you, I want to know.
Exactly.
I'm not looking for a smile and a mask. I'm looking for who you are. And I don't know if you're I really enjoy this personality system, I guess, called human design. And it's not really science-based, but this is the hippie part of me. You know, it's based on like your location of birth and time of birth, and there's 5 energy types. And
yeah,
I'm able to pick up.
You talking about a birth chart?
No, it's called human design. And
Okay.
you have body graphs and all of this. But before I knew or connected with that, I always thought I was on the outside, and I didn't understand why I operated the way I operated, and I didn't understand how my energy flowed within myself in the world. And once I discovered it, everything kind of made sense. And
Hey, Jen, real fast. You're getting a little staticky feedback on your end.
Oh, okay.
Just wanted to let you know ahead of time.
Okay. Well, iPads aren't the best at this.
No, you're good. I was just letting you know.
Okay. Anyway, this is a rabbit hole, but when we're able to find something that gives us more insight into ourselves,
Yeah,
it allows us to look at and understand even our mental wellness and what's going to support us best. I like to do individualized, personalized things within a framework.
Yeah.
So that people can really connect with it on their own level.
I'm 100% interested. Sign me up. How do I sign up for this? I'm down. I'd love to know. My guest this morning and I were talking about birth charts, and because she was talking about the astrological side of it,
Yeah.
and I was big into that too. And I would start learning different things about it, and got into a deep conversation. But I'm 100% fascinated to see what comes out from my results.
Yeah, totally. I'll reach out with you, or
Definitely.
you can run it on your own. There's a free website if you go to Jovian. Jovian archive.com.
Okay.
And it takes your some of your astrological information. It's like a blend of 7 different.
I'll have to do it, and I'll have to send it to you and see what you think, and we'll check it out and see what happens.
My fun on the side business for the hippie part of me is I'm actually a human design reader too, or like a chart interpreter. So
sweet. Okay. Well, even better. There you go. See, I'll have you check it out, and we'll see what the results are, because I'm curious to see what comes out of it too. And I'm going to do the birth chart as well, because I'm interested about that one as well, because we were talking about this morning, and my wife is the one that turned me on to all these astrological signs. Like, I've always knew what my sign was. I never really looked into it deep, you know?
Yeah.
And ever since I met her, she's kind of turned me on to a lot, like that, tarot card reading things, which I know a lot of people that hear it, they're like, "Ooh, it's hogwash." Well, you know what? Forget you, because let me tell you, when you get a reading so close to what you're thinking, there's no way you can explain that not to be that.
Right. And so that's why I love the idea that can't we be curious about things and explore them? That doesn't mean you need to take them on and hold on to them.
Exactly.
But anything that gives you more insight into yourself and how you might be able to flow differently in the world, I think is super important. And that's actually one of the first things I work with on my caregiving clients is talking about managing their personal energy from the space of, not the hippie space, but from the space of evidence-based. What is your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual energy? How are they? Where are you having some leaks? How can we plug them? How can we refill them? Because human energy fuels resilience. So without our energy, we could have the strongest, like resilience muscles, another thing I teach. But if we don't have the energy to access them, they aren't going to support us the way we want them to.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, Jen. I really do. I'm just going to let you know really fast. I am going to reach out to a friend of mine. I definitely want you to go on her show, because I think you guys would click 100%. What you're saying, I love it. I absolutely love it. And the funny thing is that energy seems to be coming up an awful lot in the last few weeks. And it started with one guest that was an energy alchemist. And ever since then, I've been running into all these people that have something to do with energy, which I start learning more about myself as I go, because I found out that I'm very sensitive to energy, and I've always been sensitive. I could never explain it, what it was. It was just a weird feeling. I never put my finger on it until I met the one person. Melanie had told me about it, and I was like, well, that makes sense. And ever since then, all these people just keep coming to me that are energy type people, and I'm like, this is so interesting you said that, because that's what we talked about this morning too.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be completely honest, and I don't share this a lot on all the shows that I go on because sometimes it scares people.
Well, I appreciate it though, first ahead of time. Yeah. So,
well, and the other thing is that so we all know that what is this, the second law of thermodynamics is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, just transformed.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm able to do this kind of work that's really difficult with people who are thinking about death a lot is because I was able to change my relationship with death.
Yeah.
Because of my belief in energy, and everything is energy, and that energy simply transforms. So that's the way that I'm able to hold space for those who are in very difficult situations and not then have it affect my energy and how I show up in the world. Because I'm able to hold them in a different way. And energy really means everything to me. And I'm happy to be able to share bits and pieces of that through the framework that I use to work with clients. And then those who are more interested, I'll go down that hole with you.
Let's go. Yeah, I'm down.
Let's go.
Sign me up.
Yeah, because it's really, really transformed the way I'm able to caregive for my daughter and even look at my illness and myself, and even know that when I pass on, I will have a different relationship with the people who are in my lives. It'll be via energy and not the physical aspect. Some people, like I said, aren't ready to talk about that stuff, and that's fine.
That's all right. Listen, we could talk about this all day. I don't care what they want. This is my show. We can talk about it. So forget them. Yeah. But like I said, it's weird though. It's weird in the coincidence that it just that just keeps coming up. And it's like more and more and more just energy. It always shows up. And then now it makes sense, because last week I had a woman named Tanya Eckenberg that was on. And that's what she does too. Tanya's on too. Tanya was on last week. She's actually been on a friend's show too. And me and her were on a Holocaust survivor panel together too. That was real great. Yeah. So ever since I started this thing, it's been an interesting journey. I've got to do so many different things I never would have thought. I've met so many cool people along the way. And it's just so great that you're here, because for some reason, the universe wanted us to be here. And there it is right there, because of the energy, because that's it. And me and my guests were talking about how your energy attracts other people that have the same wavelength you do, kind of, and I'm learning more of this stuff as I go. So listen, gear me up. I'm going down the rabbit hole with you. I'm diving head first. So
I want to share this with you then.
Go right ahead.
When I first started training to be a life coach, one of the people who owned the company and was the trainer, she shared her transformation of anxiety into a different energy. She was having a lot of anxiety, and then at one point just had this kind of moment where she thought, wait a minute, anxiety is just energy. What am I? And I'm not saying, okay, I want to preface this by saying I do understand that there are, chemical and neurochemicals and all of those things that happen that we do need to treat that way.
Yeah.
Okay? I understand that. Believe me, I'm doing that right now. I also really find it interesting that can we explore that feeling in our body, the energy that we're feeling and we're putting as anxiety. Is it always anxiety? Is it excitement? Is it, my daughter came up with a word years ago where she'll say, I'm nerve-sighted.
I love that. I love that.
So she has the diagnosis of general anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
And she has these moments of nerve-sightedness.
Yeah.
And so we're able to, reframe some things at times that help us experience the moment that we're in a different, better way.
Yeah.
But I loved when my trainer shared that she stopped enough to pause and breathe and ask herself, what am I feeling?
Exactly.
So
I love that though. You say that, the breathe thing, because there's a guy I met that was from Canada named Leroy, and he wrote a book called Just Breathe. Yeah. So the principal idea was just that, just breathe, because what are you feeling at this moment? And think about how your next action is going to make, what next action you're going to do. Now, Leroy works as a principal at a school in Canada. He's teaching this to 5 and 6 year old kids that are coming to him. It's truly amazing what he's doing. He's literally teaching them how to think before they react. And a lot of times when he has to pull them aside and talk to them, they literally first thing he says, well, I should just breathe, and everything. It's so funny because that's what his book was called, and it's interesting when you bring that up because that's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, man, that's kind of interesting because, Leroy is talking about that. And a lot of people do breath work and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And I'll have a guest later on sometime this year. He's an actually ex-Australian Special Forces or something like that. He wrote a book about breathing, doing like breathing to the breath work. Sorry, I got caught up in breath work.
Yeah.
But he's got a book I got to read before I interview him because I wanted to make sure, I'm well versed on what he was talking about and things like that too. And to go back to your point of your other book you're reading, I get weird looks when I told people I wrote a breast cancer memoir. They're like, "What are you reading this for? Why not? Why can't I just be interested in other people's stories?" Because I say it's so fascinating. The human element of life is just, people are all different. People go through different things. And, Erica's book was so interesting because in the back half of the book, it gets real raw, real fast. There's pictures of the aftermath of the surgeries that she went through and the scars and the stitching that looked like basically something out of Saw. And it was great though. And I told people the book I'm reading, and you should have seen the looks I got from half of the males were like, what? What are you reading exactly?
Curiosity and lifelong learning is one of the brilliant parts of being on Earth.
Exactly. You never too old to learn anything at this point. And I'm at this point where I'm just like, if I'm interested, I'm gonna go check it out. I don't even care anymore. I don't care what people think. I'm gonna tell you I'm reading it. If you don't like it, well, there's the door. See you later, because you don't have to care about it. It's fine. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great book though. It was a real great read in case anybody wants to read it. It's called The Mastectomy I've Always Wanted. She had a double mastectomy. Yeah. And it's her journey from beginning to end. And then in it has these little poems that were so great that were just from her own personal journal, she said too. I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's why I enjoyed them so much, because you could feel the reality of them coming, because that's where they came from. And, you just feel that sense of like, ooh, okay, I really like these, but why? And then when I interviewed her, she had mentioned that's what it was. I was like, well, that makes sense, because you put a part of yourself in there in those poems that you put in there, because they're coming from your own personal diary.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to recommend another book.
Well, yeah, go ahead. What you got for me?
That I loved reading, and I'll reread parts of it all the time. And I don't have the author's name off the top of my head, but it's called Close to the Bone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's talking about chronic illness as a spiritual journey.
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, yeah. I'm going to check it out.
The words that the author uses, the turns of phrases, it's just enveloping. And I love that book.
It sounds like it's pretty good. I'm going to check it out for sure. Like I said, I've still got to read a couple other books too. I got another one I got from another author. She was telling her story about her dealing with her narcissistic ex-husband. I was dealing with a 15-year relationship with a narcissist, and it was interesting because when I interviewed the woman, she literally, her situation is so bad she can't even have her picture on the screen. She had to have another image on the camera instead, because that's how crazy it was getting. But it was so real, because this memoir she wrote that she sent me, that I've been reading a little bit of. I haven't finished it yet, but it's so interesting how much things line up, And the crazy thing was, she was about 35 minutes away from where I was living, down in the area where she's at now.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, okay, we were so close, but we didn't know it. And then here we are right here on the show all of a sudden, so, but it's so cool though,
Yeah. No, I've been really enjoying guesting on podcasts and getting to know hosts and hearing about their other guests, and just being a part of conversations is super important to me, because you're shining a light on the importance of mental wellness and mental health. I think it's a conversation we need to be having every day with those who are especially close with us.
Exactly.
And, those who reach out for support.
Yeah. And that's hard for a lot of people. They don't know what to do in those situations. And that's why I bring in different people that add different elements to the conversation, and they give out great tips and things like that, and I always ask them all different, hey, what are some tips you got, for anybody? So do you have any tips for anybody out there? Just anything you want to throw out there, some little nuggets of help for them. Just keep adding into our conversation.
Sure. Well, I'll share one of my favorite quotes.
Okay.
Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And we're not sure who first said it, who it's attributed to, but I learned it when I was 16 and on the chemotherapy unit for children, because I had just had my transplant and they had to keep my immune system safe, just like they had to keep these cancer patients' system safe. And I saw this as I was sitting in my hospital bed, feeling bad for myself and not wanting to get up and not wanting to do what everyone was telling me to do because woe is me. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And here's a parent pushing an IV pole down the hallway while their kid, who's undergoing chemotherapy for cancer, is riding a tricycle in the hospital hallway. Here is the 3-year-old who was my neighbor, who had chemotherapy and radiation. He's 3 years old. Every night came over to visit me to bring me one of his stuffed animals so that I could be comforted that night.
That's awesome.
So that's why I try to live that, suffering is optional, and I want to try to help people ease their suffering while we're here and we're experiencing everything that life throws at us, because we know that that's like a constant. Change is a constant. And so how we respond, just as you were saying earlier with the breathing, how we respond versus react is what's going to really direct how we're experiencing life.
Yeah,
my tip that goes along with that is breathing. It's the first building block of prosilience, or proactive resilience, building your resilience for the turbulent world.
Yeah.
And it's self-regulation. It's calming yourself. It's what are the ways that you can bring yourself back into your parasympathetic nervous system so that you can make decisions and choices from your wise mind rather than our reactionary mind.
That's awesome. That's true, though. Think about it, because if we think about it before we act, I think 90% of the conflicts we have wouldn't even be there, honestly, because we're not quick to jump the handle, or we're not jumping into things with emotion versus actually using thought before we react to things. Yeah. And that's why I was pushing for the panel. I was going to say really quick is that's why we're going to do the panel, is because it's a hard conversation, but people need to have these conversations about things, because like, especially when it comes to that topic, somebody comes to you and says something to you. I don't think people realize it. At least they're talking to you. Okay, let's look at the facts there. That they're talking to you. That you're already winning the battle there, because a lot of people that feel that way are feeling burdened. Feel like they don't want to burden you. And feel like they're a waste of space for you and things like that. All those kind of negative thoughts go through. But if they're talking to you, you're already winning the battle. Something you're doing or something you're giving off is giving those people the confidence that they can come to you and say, "Hey, Jen, this is how I'm feeling," and just start telling you about it. Mm-hmm. Now, how you respond from there. Yeah, that's the thing. You just gotta, just like we were talking about, you just gotta think about what you say next. Just be actively listening to them, and if you feel like they're getting to that point where they need some help, you need to get them some help, and just don't leave them alone ever.
Yeah. I work with a lot of different clients and people experiencing different life things, and at some point I know that the framework that I use and the coaching that I use isn't going to be enough, quote unquote. Yeah. And so then I'll just say, I care about you and I want to support you. And this particular subject, or the way that you're responding to the emotion, which is completely fine because that's what you're feeling, is out of my scope. So let's work together to get you support so that you can come back to a quote unquote baseline, where then we can start working on moving forward, because that's what I do mostly as a coach, is helping people prepare for the future. But also I like to help people really ground in the present moment, because when we don't do that, we aren't experiencing life, which is the reason we're all here.
Exactly.
So breathing is, man, I'm doing it a lot today because, like I said, we've been, I've been going here or there, getting my daughter to school, my computer's not working, I'm feeling tightness in my chest. Well, what can I do? I can breathe. And I have that tool with me all the time.
Yeah,
I actually, for the first 3 months of my life coaching certification, I practiced intentionally, mindfully breathing. That's where I put my focus. And I think that's what's really helped rewire some of my responses and my mindset.
Yeah.
Because it's just part of me now.
Yeah. I think mindfulness is a very interesting topic. I had a guest named Rudy that came on. He had created an app that's called Affirmate, and that's exactly what it is. He taught you how to be more mindful. And he said, listen, Pete, it only takes 1 minute a day for our app. That's it. Just spend 1 minute a day and that's it. And then you go on your day. That's it. He goes, everybody's got a minute. I said, yeah, you're right. You're right. And he is explaining, like, he used coffee as the example. He's like you drink the coffee. He's like, but if you're using mindfulness, you're smelling it, taking in that aroma it gives off, you're tasting and you're feeling the texture of the coffee, and you're breaking it down to such a deeper level. And it's so interesting. Now I can't drink coffee or water the same way because I'm having the same thought process going through my head the whole time. And I messaged him, told him, I said, damn it, Rudy, I said, I can't stop thinking about the coffee conversation. He just laughs hysterically. He's like, oh my God. But yeah, it was an interesting conversation though, because we were talking about that, and he's like, you can apply it to anything, honestly. Just kind of like, just think about it on a deeper level. And it's so interesting because when you start really thinking about certain things, like how the different perspective changes though. It's like, that's just not a cup of coffee anymore, man. You're really enjoying that cup of coffee now because you're feeling it from a whole nother, using the mindful set, you're being more mindful about what you're doing. And it gets interesting as you go and you apply that to everything else.
Oh, definitely. One of the first things I did when I was feeling a lot of anxiety after my daughter's diagnosis about a year after, I had gotten to the point where I couldn't eat anything without being in a fetal position on my bed, having stomach pain. I was down to 100 pounds. Yeah. I was not the person I wanted to be for myself or for supporting her. And I was also laid off from my corporate job at the same time. And so something guided me to having coffee with a past coworker who was in the personal and professional development space. And that's how I got into the life coach certification and started doing this work. At the same time, I signed up for a mindfulness-based stress reduction course. Mm-hmm. And it was incredible because one of the exercises we did was mindful eating. And all we used was a golden raisin. And it took us 15 to 20 minutes to eat that golden raisin because of the things that you were just sharing.
Yeah.
It was a really incredible experience.
Yeah, it was interesting when he was talking to me about it because when I booked him, I was like, this is going to be, I feel like this is going to be an interesting conversation. And then he went into it, the way he was just explaining, it was so soft toned and everything too. It was just like, it didn't matter anything else. He said, okay, Rudy, you can tell me anything you want. You can tell me I'm dying right now, Rudy. I don't think it'd matter, man. Because he was just so soft toned when he told me though. But when we went deep into the conversation, like I locked into the conversation real deep because I was listening to everything he was saying. And that's why I have my headphones like this, because I can hear nothing else around me too. And it's happened twice before. There was another woman I talked to. She referred to this entity as spirit. She talks to you, okay? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think what her name is. Brianna. I can't something like that. I'll have to send you the episode. But you'll have to watch me. I stop. I don't say anything. I just start like staring, like I'm going off into another. But what's happening is nothing around me exists. Whatever she's saying to me only exists the whole time. I'm so focused on literally what she's saying. I'm putting so much deep thought into it. And it's interesting because then I'll explain afterwards what happens. I was like, whoa, let me tell you what just happened. Mm-hmm. Because I'm just so focused. And it was just like, it was interesting because it was open eye opener because it was just like, well, what just happened? And how do you explain these kind of things, And a lot of mindfulness went into it because I'm like, man, I'm really hyper focused on what she's saying. Nothing else matters. I'm only worried about what she's saying. I'm breaking down everything she's telling me. And all she was doing is just reading me an excerpt of something that she said that somebody was speaking to her from her book. So she read it to me and I clicked so well. And it was just like, I go into this trance, man. It's just weird. I'm just sitting there. I'm so hyper focused on what she's doing. But afterwards, like I said, when I start explaining it to you, I'm completely normal right afterwards. But you could tell like something happened within that 5 minutes of what was going on. Yeah. And it's been so interesting, though, since day one of this thing, all the people I meet with that kind of stuff. And it just gets weirder. It gets weirder, but in a good way to me. Like, I like it because then I'm more intrigued now about more things, And when Rudy and I's conversation came up, man, he started talking about the coffee thing. And I was just like, bro, I said, that's so interesting because that night I went to work and I started drinking the coffee and I was doing exactly what he was telling me to do. And I was like, man, this is so interesting that, that he said that. And I guess here's voice in the back of my head telling me the same steps. You got to smell the coffee, then you got to taste the coffee, mm-hmm. You got to feel the texture of the coffee and things like that and all that kind of stuff too. And it's so interesting though, hey, how you doing? And stuff like that. But I think it's interesting though. Like I said, it's been a weird year so far because people that are connecting, a lot of same subjects come up, and things like that too.
Yeah. That's what I kind of love is the idea that there is a broadening of understanding of who we are as humans in the world. And I think that's just going to, keep accelerating. and allow people to experience more and more about what it means to be human. And that's one thing I love to help people do, is kind of get off the quote unquote hamster wheel and really step into their life, even if it's hard right now.
Yeah.
Because running away from hard isn't going to allow us to process and feel what we need to, so that we don't have, the body keeps the score. What we keep pushing down will come back.
Yeah.
And so
it'll come out like a bottle rocket shooting off.
Yeah. And so like taking those moments to start bringing mindfulness and breathing into your life, soon it becomes part of your quote unquote DNA, part of your being. And so you don't have to think about it as much. It's just part of how you show up in the world. And I feel that I've been able to experience life, even with all of these difficult things going on, in a more hopeful and even joyous way. Like when I start a session with a client or a workshop, I always ask, what is one glimmer going on in your life right now? Because a lot of times when we start talking, it's because we want to vent or share problems or solve something. So if we go to that place of what is working right now, it actually brings us into our parasympathetic nervous system, which allows us to absorb more information. And I credit Deb Dana, who's a psychiatrist, because she termed that coin glimmer sort of as the opposite of a trigger.
Yeah.
So if we can look at what's working today. So like Pete, what's working today right now? What's a glimmer that you're having today?
This is success of this podcast, honestly. I've had great conversations all day, Jen. Between you and my last guest, Nikki, it's just been it's been euphoric, honestly. I love it. I love it when I have great conversations with people that just flow back and forth between two people. I think there's only one time I've had a problem trying to get somebody to talk, but that was it. And it turns out that this funny story, it turns out that the same person that all of us had the same issue, because I have a little group of podcaster friends I have that we all communicate on Instagram, and we'll suggest guests to each other and, things like that. And it was just like the same person's name popped up.
Yeah.
It was so funny, but yeah, man, it's been a great conversation so far here. And then, like I said, I went earlier, and it doesn't feel like work. A lot of people say it's like a job, but it is somewhat, but it's other than that. It's great because I get to talk to new people and have exciting conversations and engaging conversations with people about things. And when the conversation flows back and forth, it's euphoric.
Yeah. I love that. I love that the piece of human connection that's so important to all of us that I believe some of us forget about.
Yeah.
And so you being able to connect with your guests, but then also connect your listeners with the guests is really an important part of the human experience. So I want to acknowledge you for doing that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Space holding for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the idea behind this thing, is creating a safe space that we can talk about these things. And then I have the Facebook group I started creating. And it's the same thing. It's and all these people, just invite people in there. The idea is that we're going to be positive. There's no negativity. I'll post clips from other people's episodes because I do recordings all week long usually. So I'm constantly recording. March alone, I did 28 interviews with just different people. But everybody else said that's a lot of work. To me, it was like, I couldn't get enough. Are you kidding me? Half these conversations were just engaging. I think Betsy Holmberg and I is the one I enjoyed last month for sure. Her, Dr. Bonnie, and there was another woman, and then the Sherry Ann was the other one I really enjoyed too. But they not to say anybody else wasn't great, but we just watched the conversation ping pong back and forth. And me and Tanya had the same thing too. Yeah. We just had nothing. We could have gone for hours. Me and her, if she didn't have to leave, we could have gone for hours, honestly, because we were just enjoying going back and forth the whole time.
I remember that conversation when I was on Tanya's podcast. Yeah. I agree. Like when I just went out on my own in business, January 2024, that's when I started my focus with caregivers and chronic illness patients.
Yeah.
And I just started like, well, I guess to get the word out, I'll start going guesting on podcasts. And so I think I did like 30 podcasts. Like,
dude, I love it.
6 to 7 months, and Tanya's was one of those. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I invite a lot of podcasters on here. So it's like Mentally a Badass has been on the show. Justine's a really amazing girl. What's his name? I can't think of his name. Keegan's the one that actually connected all of us together for the panel. The guy that hosted the panel, him and I talk all the time. He's been on the show. I've had so many different podcasters come on here and things like that. And it's great because they're new people you get to meet and people you get to connect with. And then, we all connect, all that kind of stuff. And I keep in touch with a lot of people and just keep sharing different guests with them. Like that's all we, but I try to go on a lot of people's shows too. So I am going to do one tomorrow. It's called I Need a Friend. So it'll be interesting. I was on one, though. I do want to reach out to her and see if she's got any time for you, though. It's called Humanity 2.0. Okay. So the idea behind this thing was that Vanessa is the woman that runs it. She was doing a project that said, "Are you happy?" So basically, she went on the street and she said to you, "Hey, say random to watch you. Hey, what's your name, Jen? Hey, Jen, are you happy?" And then record it what your response was. And her account she was working with had like 4.2 million followers just asking that question. Hey, how are you happy? So she decided to go off into her own thing, and she called it Humanity 2.0. And she asked this interesting question I'm about to ask you now that I've asked a lot of people on my TikTok is that, what does humanity mean to you? It's a good one, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's difficult to answer in this point
It is.
in time. But humanity to me,
it's a real thought provoker. I'm telling you. That's what she asked me in the episode, and I was like, man.
I know part of it is the idea that all humans need to be seen, heard, and valued. And so when you're part of humanity and you help facilitate those needs for other humans, I think that's really a glimpse of what humanity is. And then also the piece of connection. And what's interesting is the work that I do with caregivers. I have a resilience assessment where we look at your resilience muscles, the 7 that we're born with. And some of them take more energy to access to support you in challenges, and some of them are easier and don't drain you. And the one that drains caregivers the most is connection.
Yeah. Jen, I'm going to let you know, Jen already knows I'm live on TikTok still right now. I actually had a good one that came in. It said, respect for each other is another one somebody said.
Yeah.
It's great. Like I said, that was an interesting question. She literally said, hey, what's this? So I'll have to reach out to her and see if she can get you on, though, for sure. Vanessa was great. I did it, and just let everybody know that my episode actually will be premiering in May for Mental Health Awareness Month. Vanessa told her, so since I'll let y'all know. I'll drop it in my Facebook group. I'll post all my links and everything of that. But yeah, I try to do as many spots as possible. I think I enjoyed doing a few of them that I've done so far. What I'm going to do is a dream analysis one with Ben, the Dream Wizard, is what his name is.
Cool.
He said that it's going to be like a 2-hour long interview or something like that. He's going to analyze it, and then he's going to come on the show. And then we're going to talk about what the results were. And it's going to be an interesting conversation. There's also Emotionally Unavailable, which is great too. And that one was done with Melissa Hepner. Her and I she just hits click and you just go in a conversation in general. It was just fun to do. Why not? And I've done a couple other ones too. But yeah, I think that's been my goal this year. I'm going to try and do as many podcast spots as I can. I'm trying to get on as many shows.
Well,
just because I enjoy it.
Like that connection and conversation is something that fuels you and lights you up. And so then that's definitely something that I don't like to should on people, but that's definitely something that you should do or that you desire to do. So go for it.
Yeah, I'm doing it too. I got a collaboration. Actually, I had an email I haven't really told many people about, but I got an email from somebody by the name of what's his name now? Rodriguez. I'm trying to think what his first name is now. Gentleman, Mr. Rodriguez reached out to me. Okay, so he has 15,000 followers on Instagram, and he basically said, "Hey, I seen your post. I want to collab. I like what you're doing." For someone that has 15,000 followers to reach out to me, tell me they like what I'm doing, means I'm doing something right. Yeah. And I'm like, I look forward to those conversations too. Anytime people collaborate with me and things like that, it's always because I'm always trying to help other people get seen too. Other podcasters, everything like that. I tell them all the time, reach out. I get musicians on here too. I've had a couple really interesting conversations. One with Lucy Lenore. She's a part of a band called Haunter. Okay. This woman has 583,000 downloads. Okay, 20,000 followers on Instagram or something like that. And when I asked her to be on the show, she literally saw my comment on everybody else's, came on. And I didn't realize that she was such a big advocate for it. And it was so cool to have somebody with those kind of credentials just sitting there talking to you. Like, it was so surreal though, but she was such a cool person. But then she revealed to us that she had BPD. And I was like, whoa, hold on, game changer here now. Like, this is interesting because you never know. If you watch any of her videos and things like that, you would never have an idea, and a lot of people didn't know what it was. That's what started my interest in it, because a girl prior to that had mentioned that she had BPD as well, that caused me to start looking into it. And lo and behold, there it goes. And I start getting these other people that had it that come on. And it's so interesting to see how they all deal with it, and you get different perspectives of things that people are dealing with and how they deal with it. So And it's so great like that and things like that as well. And we got somebody on YouTube says I support, but this is actually a previous guest on the show.
Movement.
This is actually a previous guest that was on the show. She's on about 2 weeks ago. Her name is Sprite, is what she goes by, and TikTok and everything else, guys. If you haven't checked out Sprite, go check her out. She's really cool. Her episode's on there. Me and her had an interesting conversation too, and like a lot of times when you get people on here, it's like you don't know about 15 minutes in. A lot of times you'll see them open up. They start telling you a lot of really interesting things, and Lucy almost told us what the incident was that caused her that caused her BPD. And I was like, man, we were so close. I feel like if we could have got her to say it, it would have been interesting. But I get it though. You come on here, you got to be very vulnerable. You got to give your story out to people, and it's out there. I mean, it's just like anything, movies, books.
Sometimes your story involves other people's stories too.
Yeah,
so
true point.
Like I always check with her, like what's okay for me to share.
I love that.
Isn't, because it's her story, it's her life. And here's another little story that I hate to share, but now my iPad is at 6%.
No, we're getting ready to wrap up actually, Jen, so don't worry. I try and keep it about. I had a feeling that it was time to start wrapping up anyways, but anyways.
I could talk with you all day. And
you know what I'm saying? This is great.
People and all the amazing work that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. It's all on my YouTube. By the way, Spotify gets all of them later on. I think my sound guy, Logan, by the way, shout out to him. He's working hard at it. He's about 40 episodes behind now.
Yeah.
So I usually drop new episodes every Tuesday. So
it drips the information out. So different people hear it at different times.
Right.
And maybe they watch the YouTube, but then they hear it again on Spotify and they get a different awareness from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
that's exactly the way I did it.
Trust in the perfection of the unfolding.
Exactly. It's exactly what I'm doing. That's why I try to be everywhere possible. So, Jen, why don't you go ahead and plug everybody where they can find you? I know you said you're on Instagram. I'll get all the information, guys. It will be in the description below. That way you guys can reach out and let Jen know, hey, I saw you on the show, or hey, I want to, know more about what she does, Jen. So go ahead, let them know where to find you.
Sure. Well, you can find me at my website, prosiliencecoach.com, prosilience coach.com. And what I really like to do is, yes, work one-on-one with people, but I find the most impact I can have is partnering with health organizations and systems, nonprofits and foundations, and have them bring me in to support their community of family and unpaid caregivers and even chronic illness patients. So we can come in and I can share certain things. And then if they'd like to work further, we can do that as well. But that's really what I do. It is my passion and my mission, and I really feel my calling. I feel like I've been preparing for this since even before I had my first kidney transplant. And it's taken me into almost being 50 to really step into who I'm meant to be in the world.
Yeah.
And how I'm meant to show up in the world. And I really love to support people finding their way.
I really love that. I think that's great. I really do. I think it's awesome. Jen, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate being here. If your daughter would like to come on sometime, we'd love to get her perspective on just mental health things in general. Let her know. Complete reach out there whenever we will figure out a time or whatever works for her. Definitely. She's more than welcome to come on here because I think it'll be an interesting conversation to hear her opinion, especially being that young, it'd be interesting to see what she sees the world as, just as an interesting perspective. But anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. Jen, thank you so much again for coming. I appreciate it. This is a great conversation. I know your iPad's going to die, so let's close it out here, guys. You know where to find me on Pete vs. Anxiety on X, all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all the way down to iHeartRadio, guys. And always remember what I always tell everybody, don't ask how your day is, ask how your mental health is. Okay, guys, remember that. And I can't say that, guys. Remember, May 5th, suicide panel's going to be on. Guys, let me know. I'll let you know the time and dates and everything else. But I'm Pete for Society, so I'm saying, don't ask how your day is. Ask how your mental health is today, guys.